Oh, that looks yummy, doesn't it? Looks yummy, but I don't think I'll be eating a beef Wellington. But I do admit that beef Wellington does look pretty yummy. Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So here we are again for the mushroom murder trial. Or the murder mushroom trial, whichever way round you want to talk about it. Oops, sorry, I put my wrong banner up. Oh, today's been one of those days already. But anyway, so yeah, here we are again for what is it, about the 26th day of this trial. We're right in the middle of the 6th week. I think this is going to go into a 7th week. You know, because there's still a little way to go, I think, in this trial. You know, we're on is it the 3rd day that Erin gave her testimony? And there's more to come. Then there's cross-examination. Well, then there's any more witnesses that the defence might call. Because so far they've only called Erin as to defend herself. But they may call other witnesses. Then you've got the prosecution cross-examining Erin. That should take some time because 3 days testimony so far she's given. So that's a lot of cross-examination, isn't it? Then, as I say, any other defence witnesses, then the summons up, I suppose, and then the jury will go out for deliberations. So it does look like this trial is going to go into a 7th week, I would imagine, unless it all happens really quick from now on. So yeah, Erin Patterson, is she like the Lady Macbeth, or is she been maligned? You know, is she the mushroom Macbeth, mushroom lady mushroom Macbeth, who poisoned her relatives or her husband, estranged husband's relatives, or has Erin been misjudged? Was it all just a horrible accident? Well, hold on to your hats for today's testimony, because I don't know. You know, sometimes I wonder, is this defence the prosecution? Because, you know, I think getting Erin up on stand, the things that she's saying, I mean, maybe it's just me, but you'll tell me what you think as well. But they don't make me feel like she's innocent. Now, doesn't matter what I think, of course. All that matters is what the jury thinks. How will the jury think about the testimony that Erin is giving? Maybe they won't look on it the same way as me. But I almost feel like Mr. Mandy's trying to get her found guilty. Or maybe he's just gone for the thing of, you know, just go for the honesty or go for the direct approach and see what happens. And it might impress the jury. I don't know, but it just all seems a bit weird to me. I was sort of reading about it a bit open-mouthed, really. It just seems to get worse and worse for Erin. I don't think she's making it any better. But you'll tell me what you think. And as I say, the only people that really matter are the jury. So for anyone who's been on a different planet and doesn't maybe know what's going on, there hasn't been loads of coverage of it, but I noticed it was on Sky News today, UK Sky News, for the first time. The BBC are there in the courtroom. The momentum is growing as it comes near to the verdict. You know, we're talking about 6 weeks so far with hardly any coverage on the UK news. And now suddenly it's on the UK news. Well, we've covered it from day one. The playlist for this very strange case is in the description of this video. So if you want to catch up right from the beginning, you can do so there. But it does feel that as it's getting near the end, the interest is ramping up. As I say, we've covered it right from the beginning, but people, other media sources, whether other YouTubers will come onto it. Anyway, so yeah, I did notice that today because I watch Sky News a lot, and I've never seen anything on Sky News about it during this trial so far, but today it was on the news. UK Sky News, of course. I'm sure it's been on the Sky News Australia or whatever. So yeah, let me say before we get going with this, and it literally is hold on to your hat, buckle up, because the things that Erin is coming out with now, well, to me, they just expose all the lies that she told before, because what she's saying now, she wants everyone to think that what she's saying now is the truth, despite the fact it contradicts clearly with things that she said previously, doesn't it? So that's Erin. She supposedly foraged these mushrooms. She's now saying that she did forage them as well. So she's gone from saying she definitely didn't forage mushrooms. Now she's a bloody mushroom expert. And this is her. And she was estranged from this man, Simon, her estranged husband, and she invited him. She did invite him and his 4 relatives. His dad, Don, his mum, Gail, his auntie, Heather, and Ian Wilkinson. She invited them all over to lunch. At the last minute, Simon, very cleverly, said he didn't want to go. He felt uncomfortable. So just these other 4 people went. Erin served them, of course, a lovely, delicious, apparently, delicious the meal was, a delicious beef Wellington, but unbeknownst to them, it was laced with the most toxic mushroom you can imagine. Death cap mushrooms were in that beef Wellington, and Erin says they got there by accident. So other things were, of course, that I just need to remind you because it will come up in the testimony today. Not only Erin invited these people over, but she told them she had cancer. She was worried how she was going to tell her 2 children she had cancer. Previously, she'd said she'd had a biopsy for cancer. She said she had to have an MRI. Or these poor people who were all very religious people. Ian, this guy on the right, he's the only survivor of that lunch. The 3 other people died. He survived after a liver transplant. He's a pastor. They're all very religious. They all prayed for Erin. After she'd sat and watched them eat that beef Wellington, probably knowing that there were death cap mushrooms in it, or allegedly, they then all sat and prayed for her. It's a horrible case, isn't it? It really is a horrible case. If Erin is found guilty, she really is the most horrible person, I think. Anyway, so yeah, she apparently dried the mushrooms in this dehyrator. She later told the police, or not this particular one, but one similar. She later told the police she'd never owned a dehyrator. She'd never owned one. She'd never foraged for mushrooms. Anyway, now, of course, it's all coming out that was all lies as well, just like the cancer. She then dumped this dehyrator in a sort of waste disposal place. And when it was recovered, it had traces of death cap mushrooms that Erin is saying, accepting that they were there, but it was an accident, and she didn't know they were death cap mushrooms. Oh my God! And what's some other things she's going to say in her testimony today? So be prepared. She's going to say that because she factory reset her phone, she's going to say that third time was an experiment. She's going to say all sorts of things. She made herself sick after the lunch. She ate 3 portions of cake and then made herself sick. Oh, she's going to come out with all sorts of things. And the jury is supposed to believe her. So we'll see whether we believe her or not. So anyway, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you for watching. Thank you for caring about Don, Gail, Heather and Ian, the victims in this case. And thank you for, a lot of you have been with me ever since I've started covering it. So thank you for that. And please remember to, thank you for liking, for subscribing. Thank you for those at my members. We're be on members live tomorrow night, won't we? My exclusive members live. That's if you want to support my channel in a bit more of a way than liking and subscribing, which is a brilliant way of supporting my channel. But if you want to go that little bit further, why not become a member? Or send me a Ko-fi. I want to thank people that have bought me Ko-fis or sent super stickers. Just any way you've supported my channel, thank you so much. Okay, so hi lurkers. Oh, we're getting right down to the nitty gritty now. We're coming to the end of this case, and this sort of part of me can't wait for this trial to be over. You know, because I think we're all a bit mushroomed out. We know so much more about mushrooms now that probably we wish we didn't know, to be honest. We're a bit, so part of me wants it to be over with, as I'm sure the victims' families do, just to get, get a verdict. But there's also, it has also been a very fascinating case, I think. It's a unique case. It's a unique trial. I've never seen anything like it. It's enjoyed is not the right, but it's been fascinating, hasn't it? You can't enjoy when you're hearing about somebody possibly being murdered. It's not enjoyment, it's fascination. The intrigue of what's going on in Erin Patterson's head, and is she guilty or is she innocent? That's the decision that jury have got to decide. And talking of mushrooms, I brought a mug out of number one son's room last night. Oh my God, I think there were death cap mushrooms growing in it. It'd been in there that long. Fungi is a funny old thing, isn't it? God, I swear there were mushrooms growing in the bottom of it. So, we know a lot about, it has put me off mushrooms a little bit, though, because I do like mushrooms normally. But it has made me think about mushrooms a lot more. Let's just put it that way. So, hi, lurkers. Hi, replay crew. And now I'm going to come and say hello to the chat. Those of you that are brave enough to venture into the chat and chat amongst yourselves, thank you for doing that. And buckle up for today's installment. Oh my God. Oh, so there's a lot of chat there. There's been a lot of chat going on. Hi, Excel. Yep, another day, another mushroom. Hi, David. Hi, Bluebell. Hi, Swin. Thank you. Thank you, Bluebell Kelly. Thank you so much for the Ko-fi. So, where's my thank you? Got a little video that I put on. I've got to do some more of these thank you videos for Ko-fis and things. Thank you so much, Kelly. You're very loyal. Kelly's Bluebell is a very loyal supporter of my channel. Thank you. Thank you. Now then, where was I? So I was in the chat. Sorry. Hi, Daniel. Happy Wednesday to you too. Hi, sheep farming. Hi, Lana. Hi, Tracy. Oh dear. Sorry, there's a lot of chat that I'm ploughing through. Thank you so much for chatting. Yeah, we want to know the verdict, just of course, as do the family. You know, I mean, this has gone on. This has been a really, really long trial, hasn't it? I think it might go to, hi Yvonne, I think it might go into next week. I really do. I really do think it might go into next week. So, with no further ado, we should get on with this. Now, can you imagine? I just want to put a picture up of Ian. Hi, Admit. I just want to put up a picture. So, Ian is the survivor. This is Ian Wilkinson. He's the only person that survived that lunch, though his wife died, didn't she? Some of the other characters, if you like, in this very unusual trial. This is the judge, Justice Beale. This was the mushroom expert, Funky Tom, who gave his, he's the one that actually saw the death cap mushrooms and put them on the sort of gonzo science site, iNaturalist, and it's thought that that's where Erin saw where to get them from. This is Colin Mandy, who's the guy, the defense lawyer. And this is Simon, Erin's estranged husband. But this woman is the woman at the center of it all, Erin herself. Did she do, I mean, she did it. She's admitting that now that there were death cap mushrooms. But the question is, did she do it on purpose? That's the question. That's what the jury have got to get to the bottom of. Hi, Miss Lee. I'm glad you're feeling better today. Good. I'm glad you're feeling better. Yes, Admit, we're live, actually. You're not replay crew. We are live. We are live. So, let's go to, we've been following it through the ABC news, haven't we? I think we'll stick with that because the BBC actually did give a good, they've been giving a very good sort of live blog, the BBC now, they've only been really doing that for the past, this week really, the BBC weren't doing that before, but we're going to stick to it, we've stuck with from the beginning. The ABC news that we've been following their blog, haven't we? So let's just have a little look at this video. We normally start off with a little video, a summary.
Patterson is still in the witness box. She's continuing to be questioned by her defence lawyer, Colin Mandy SC, and she's provided a bit of insight as to why she dumped a food dehydrator at a local tip in the days after that beef Wellington lunch. Now, we've heard about this dehydrator before.
I think this was a mistake by Erin when she gave this interview. I don't think she came over as being genuinely upset, at least not to me, but you know, I'm sure you've all got your own views on that.
We've previously seen CCTV vision earlier in the trial where Erin Patterson rolled up to the tip in a red car, carried a big object into the tip shed and then got back in her car, and the court was told that tip staff later found that object and found that it was a dehydrator. The prosecution alleges that there were traces of death cap mushrooms found on that dehydrator. Now, today, Erin Patterson was asked why she disposed of that food dehydrator, and she said Child Protection were coming to my house that day and I was scared about the conversation that might arise about the meal from the dehydrator, and I was scared that they would blame me for it. And her defence lawyer asked, you know, blame you for what? She said, making everyone sick. I was scared that they'd remove the children. Now, she also spoke about a conversation that she had with her estranged husband, Simon Patterson, in the days after the lunch at hospital. And she says that Simon asked her about that dehydrator. She said that he said, is that how you poisoned my parents, using that dehydrator? And she says that she told him, of course not. Now, Simon Patterson was asked about that allegation earlier in the trial. He said that he didn't ask her that question or make that allegation. Now, she said that of her state of mind after he asked her that question, allegedly, she said that she was really worried. She was worried because child protection were involved, and Simon seemed to be of the mind that maybe this was intentional, and she said that she got really scared. Now, Erin Patterson has pleaded not guilty to all charges. She says, or her defence says rather, that she did not deliberately poison her guests. Well, Erin Patterson is still in the...
That was just a little, you know, they always do like a little sort of video, don't they? Now, quite a few of the things that Erin says today, or said, you know, of course, this is finished now in Australia, are complete contradictions to either what she said before or complete contradictions to what other people have said before. So the jury has got to decide which of Erin's lies are the lies and which are the truth. Because the thing is, she's contradicted herself so often, it can't all be the truth. She's definitely told lies. The jury, what she's basically saying is, oh, yeah, I lied about all that before, but I'm telling the truth now. But not only she's her own things that she said, there are things that she will claim today that directly contradict what the previous witnesses have said. So basically what she's saying is they're lying. She's not lying now, according to her, but Simon lied when he said that he never said to her, you know, did you use that dehydrator to kill my family? He says he didn't say that. She says he did. Who do we believe? Do we believe the woman that lied about having cancer, or do we believe the husband who she allegedly also tried to kill? Though that's not what she's been tried for here. So she's also casting aspersions on other people's testimony. I think she's a really bad woman, personally. The more I see about her, the more, more evil I think she is. And of course, now she's like trying to play on people's sympathies because she's trying to say that she had, let me go down to the bottom here. She's trying to say that, you know, she's had all these problems with her body image for years, and bulimia, and the terrible childhood, and this, that, and the other. She's trying to blame everything on everybody else. And the reasons why she lied, you'll find in here, she admits that she lied about having cancer. But the reason that she gives is just like, well, do you know what? The jury have just got to decide, haven't they, what they believe. So we're going to find out exactly what happened that day. Sorry, I've got to get down to the bottom, to the first post. Oh, my God. So it's been another full day of evidence where it's just been Erin. Mr. Mandy has definitely earned his money in the last few days, hasn't he? Asking Erin for her evidence. So really that's 3 full days of evidence we've had from Erin, and it's not finished yet. There's still a little bit more to go. So I think Mr. Mandy is the defense lawyer. He's sort of what's he doing? He's putting his reputation on the fact that Erin will be able to charm the jury. But I just think it's a big mistake. But anyway, that's what I think. So it's another brisk sunny morning, and it's about 6 degrees Celsius here in Morwell. And before 9 a.m, there were roughly a dozen members of the public queuing to get in the courtroom. Well, I thought there'd be a lot more than that, to be honest. If I was in that area, I'd definitely be trying to go and watch it, go and attend it. So then they give you a recap of yesterday, which I'm not going to go into. Let's see, we're not going to go into recaps. Oh, this might be interesting. So this is one of the people that's gone to watch the trial, David. David! David is amongst those filling the public gallery in courtroom 4 today. I spoke to him in the frosty pre-dawn dark at 6:20 a.m. as he joined a queue of 3 people outside the building. He told me he's from South Gippsland and had been following the case with close interest. And then he decided to start attending some hearings a few weeks ago, staying at his Morwell home on the days he's attending. So here's David. I've been coming on Mondays and Fridays because I work 3 days a week. Well, Friday's a day hardly worth going, isn't it? I think they only did half an hour last Friday. They all like to go off early on a Friday. I don't know if it'll be any different this week or not. Anyway, he added he'd taken time off to observe Erin's evidence. David said generally those who are attending from the public respected the order in which people arrived at court should determine who had the first chance to sit inside courtroom 4. At the beginning, when I first started coming, it wasn't like that when I was waiting to get in before 9, but that's changed and people are very respectful. And David, who is in his 50s, said he had never set foot in a court of law in my life before observing this trial. And he said it was not lost on those viewing from the gallery that this was a case involving real people who were also attending the hearings, and there was great empathy for their grief. And that, of course, will be poor Ian, who lost his wife, and of course their children will be there. You know, I mean, that's what we do have to remember at the heart of this. You know, 3 people died. 1 person survived but was severely ill, you know, so yeah. Hi, Joanne. So just making sure. Right, I may not be able to come back to the chat much, so if I miss you coming in, I'm sorry. Okay, so yeah, so there's David, one of the people attending the trial. So Erin returns to the witness stand to take questions from her defence lawyer, Colin Mandy. She's been shown some photographs found on an SD card in her possession. Our reporter in court, Joseph Dunstan, tells us Erin is wearing a light grey coloured top and has put her glasses on as she looks at the photos of the screen. Mr. Mandy zooms in on a row of several stills taken from a video taken on a device, and Erin says the videos were filmed by her. In the bottom right, Erin identifies her 2 children on a path in Parkland on the rail trail in the Leongatha area. Erin says another set of stills from a video show her daughter on a scooter on the path in a red top. Erin describes another photo as mushrooms on some grass and leaf litter. She tells the court she took the images we're being shown in early 2020. A timestamp on one of the images shown to the court suggests it was in April. Erin says she couldn't be specific about the date, but it was during the first COVID lockdown. Erin says she recalls using a Samsung Galaxy A70 to film the videos, and one of the images shows several mushrooms sitting on an open newspaper. Erin says the mushrooms are sitting on the kitchen bench in the home she was living at in 2020. In the background of one of the photos of mushrooms, this woman is obsessed with mushrooms. Oh my God. I mean, I thought, I like mushrooms. I thought, people would, my ex-boyfriend, or one of my ex-boyfriends always used to say to me, about what you having for dinner. He'd say, what you having with your mushrooms today? because I would have mushrooms with everything. But honestly, I have been put off them. I'm not saying I never eat them, but but this woman is absolutely obsessed with mushrooms, don't you think? She's just completely in love with mushrooms. So another photo. Oh, so in the background, Erin says the mushrooms are sitting on the kitchen bench in the home she was living at in 2020. And in the background of one of the photos of mushrooms, Erin identifies her daughter, who she says appears to be in the same red top she was wearing in the videos of her on a scooter in Parkland. Another photo is clearly focused on mushrooms. How many times have I had to say that word mushrooms? Do you think if I went back all over my video, we should have a competition? 1,000? Have I mentioned it 1,000 times? Had to say the word mushrooms? Maybe I should start saying MSs or something instead of mushrooms. So sitting on newspaper pages, and she says, I can't see enough of non-newspaper to know where that was taken. So MS photo, perhaps I should say MS photos dating back to 2020 shown. So Erin says another photo was taken in the garden to try and identify what was growing at her home at the time. Another photo shows what Erin describes as some MSs sitting on a paper towel. And she says another photo shows a flooded paddock at the property in roughly April to May 2020. She describes how a block pipe caused the paddock to fill right up. The discussion continues at quite a fast pace. Mr. Mandy takes his client through the collection of photos, only pausing briefly to ask a question or two before continuing. Do you think Mr. Mandy's strategy is to say, bring everything up that maybe the prosecution might bring up? So do you think his strategy is for her to say it all anyway? And, maybe he's hoping that will take the wind out of the prosecution's sails? I'm not sure where that photo would have been taken, Erin says, of a photo of a mushroom piece sitting on the ground outside. We go through several photos which Erin says show mushrooms sitting on her kitchen sink. Oh my God, I'm surprised she's not got them, decorating a bedroom or whatever. Now, she says she was unaware of death cap mushrooms in the area, but of course she did search death cap, didn't she? So again, Erin says she remembers on the day she filmed her children on scooters on the rail trail, they were pretty excited about the outing. Mr. Mandy asks if at some stage Erin became aware of poisonous mushrooms growing in Gippsland, and she says she did. I found out there were some mushrooms growing on my property that were probably toxic to dogs, she says. They're called inacebe. And Mr. Mandy asks if she became aware of death cap mushrooms. I can't get away without saying mushroom, can I? I have to say, I think I'm saying mushrooms about 3 times a minute. I became aware of death cap mushrooms quite early through this period, and I looked up to see if they grew in South Gippsland, and I remember finding out that essentially they didn't. Mr. Mandy takes Erin to evidence of a web search for death cap mushrooms. Yes, she searched for them, which the court previously heard was made from a computer in her home. She said, I don't specifically remember doing it that day, but it's possible it was me. Of course it was her. And possible that's part of the process. I went to see if they grew in South Gippsland, she says. Mr. Mandy notes there's been evidence in the case about records of her phone and its travel being consistent with travelling to Loch and Outram. But Erin denies ever foraging for mushrooms in Loch now trim. Thing is, do we believe her? I just, it's like if you tell 10 lies and then you say, oh, but this is the truth, how can you expect anyone to believe you when you've lied so much? Now, suddenly, what she's saying now is true. She then denies ever seeing posts made by Christine McKenzie or Funky Tom, Dr. Tom May on the iNaturalist, which reported death caps growing in the area. But it has been proven that she visited that iNaturalist site many times. So Erin is being asked about a lunch held in June 2023 with Don and Gail Patterson and the kids. Erin said she'd invited them and Simon to lunch about a week beforehand. I had become a little worried that perhaps there might be some distance growing between me and the Patterson family. Do you know what? It's just a shame for them they didn't keep that distance. But this is the crux of it, isn't it, to me? That is why Erin decided to do a sort of Lady Macbeth mushroom lunch, because she was losing control. As you know, I've said that several times. Definite. Thought she was losing control, and that's what's behind all of this. Hi, Sandra. So I wasn't sure. There was a gathering or two that I hadn't been invited to. She says previously Simon would always tell her about Patterson family events, but she realised around May or June, that's when she went foraging for the mushrooms, remember, that she probably needed to be more proactive to maintain her relationship with the Patterson family. She said it was a great lunch and the kids really enjoyed it. Erin is then taken to messages from Gail Patterson shortly afterwards, where Gail was asking her about how her medical appointments were going. Gail's concern was about a lump on her arm, which Erin said she thought she had at one point. In Erin's reply, she said she'd had a needle biopsy. So remember this lie. And bear this in mind later, because when she says later why she lied about having cancer, why did she lie about this? Why did she lie about this? Nothing makes sense to me, to be honest. So she said she had a needle biopsy, which was a lie, and would be returning for an MRI to investigate the matter, which was also a lie. But she says she had not been to an appointment, had a needle biopsy, or been booked in for an MRI. She admits they were lies. So now she admits they were lies, but the new thing she's saying is the truth. So although she told all those lies, we've still got to believe her now that what she's saying now is the truth. Some weeks prior, I had been having an issue with my elbow with pain, and I thought there was a lump there. And I had told Don and Gail about that, she says. They had shown quite a lot of care about that, which felt really nice. This is it's attention, it's the Munchausen's syndrome, isn't it? Saying that you've got these ailments that you haven't really got just because you get attention. When you tell someone you've got to have a biopsy because you think you might have cancer, no one's not going to be nice to you, are they? Even your worst enemy. Is going to be nice to you. As soon as someone says they've got cancer or possibly got cancer, who's going to be horrible to them? Or not, I don't think they were being horrible to Erin, but they were perhaps distancing themselves a little bit from her. And she did tell them about these things because she got attention from it. So the issues started to resolve, and I felt embarrassed that I had made such a big deal about it. And I didn't want their care of me to stop, so I just kept it going. I shouldn't have done it. Erin is sniffing. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I bet she is. Erin is sniffing and her voice is halting more as she discusses her reasons for lying to her mother-in-law. Now, bear in mind that mother-in-law and father-in-law are both dead now. Erin is then asked about her motivations for organising the lunch, at which 3 guests were fatally poisoned with death cap mushrooms. Primarily, the kids and I had such a good time seeing Nana and Papa that I wanted to do it again, she says. Now, it's funny, isn't it? Because all this time that she'd been married to Simon, and we heard yesterday, I think it was, that they separated many times. They were like one of those couples that seemed like when they lived apart, they missed each other. But when they lived together, they got on each other's nerves. But she definitely did like the attention from the wider family, didn't she? So she says during the earlier lunch, Gaylord commented on how nice the garden looked and that Heather would probably like to see it. Now, Heather and Ian, they had never been invited to lunch before. They were really pleased to be invited to lunch, because although Don and Gail, Simon's mum and dad, they had been for lunch before, but Heather and Ian had never been invited for lunch before. Ian described their relationship with Erin as just acquaintance, nothing more. So apparently, so now she's going to explain why she says that she invited Gail and Ian. So Gaylord commented on how nice Heather and Ian. Gaylord commented on how nice the garden looked and that Heather would probably like to see it. And Erin said she thought, well, I'll invite them too, because her and Ian have been really good to me over the years. Whereas Ian said they were just acquaintances. But of course, Heather might have had a closer relationship with Erin. I wanted to have some more connection with them, so I invited them all, she says. She confirms she made the invitation in person at church to Gail and Heather. Would you like to come to lunch at my house? Erin says she asked them, and they said, we'd love to. Gosh, that's a prophetic, that invitation. As I say, they were really excited about their invitation. And immediately after the meal, they said it was delicious, didn't they? Anyway. So Erin says she went through quite a long process on deciding what to cook, and while a shepherd's pie had been a hit in the past, that didn't seem special enough for this lunch. I remembered on it really, oh my God, I remembered on really important occasions my mum would make beef Wellington when I was a kid, and I thought I'll give it a go. Now, she supposedly had a difficult relationship with her parents. On her wedding day, her mum and dad were in Russia on a train. They didn't go to her wedding. She's made a big deal about her, her sad childhood, her childhood trauma. And then, so she associates beef Wellington with important occasions. Yeah, I'll bet. Oh, it's so sort of weird, this whole thing. She said she'd never made the dish before, and she confirms that the recipe was from her Recipe Tin Eats cookbook. So she says she went shopping for the vast majority of the ingredients from Woolworths. Now, she said that before, hasn't she? She pops her glasses on as she's shown the table the court has previously been shown, detailing her rewards history with the supermarket giant. A few highlighted items bought on July 23rd included a kilo of mushrooms, phyllo pastry and puff pastry. And let me just show you the pastry that she used. So we did see that before. Somebody, I can't remember who gave the testimony about the pastry. But yeah, she used this pastry, a combination of this puff pastry, Pampers puff pastry, and phyllo pastry, but we don't know the brand. That's what she used to make the beef Wellington. This is not the actual beef Wellington. This is just an example of a beef Wellington. So she says she's not sure if she'd made the decision to make beef Wellington for the lunch by then, but it's possible. Well, she must have done, otherwise why would she buy all the pastry? But anyway, she says she buys mushrooms very regularly, at least weekly, sometimes twice weekly, she says. Pastry was another regular purchase, she says, because the kids love sausage rolls. Okay. Well, I suppose when you buy pastry, you know, you can always make, there'll always be something that you can make. However, she says she has no idea why she bought additional quantities of phyllo pastry in the coming days. I'd only bought some a day before, but it looks like I must have forgotten I did that, she says. But I made things with pastry all the time, so it wouldn't have mattered. No, she bought a lot because she was making separate ones. That's my opinion. Because don't forget, you know, hers was separate, and then her kids, they weren't ill at all, so they definitely didn't have any death cap mushroom in their portions. So apparently she made deviations to the beef Wellington recipe. Mr. Mandy brings the question in to the beef Wellington recipe from the Recipe Tin Eats book. He asks whether she followed the recipe exactly. As she said, roughly, I did have to make some deviations. The primary one was I couldn't find the big log that the recipe called for, so I had to use individual steaks. So that's her reason for making them so she did not make one big beef Wellington to be sliced. She made individual beef Wellingtons. So this must be, this is the actual Tin Eats cookbook. So it's supposed to end up like this, like one big beef Wellington, but she made individual ones. So Erin says she sought help from her Facebook friends about doing what I was going to do in preparing the beef Wellington and the cut of meat. I took a photo of the eye fillet steak twin pack, and I sent it to the group and asked them if this was the same thing. And one or two of them said yes, she says. Erin said the different meat meant the quantities of mushrooms and pastry needed to be different. Because if you make a log and cut off slices to serve, you end up with something that looks like a steak, but it's got the mushroom and pastry around the circumference, she says. But if you make it as individual steaks, like pasties, you've got the mushroom and pastry on the top side and bottom side, rather than the circumference. You'd use a lot more mushroom and pastry. I used a lot more. So the court is then shown the colourful cover of Nagi Mashash's Recipe Tin Eats Dinner Cookbook, and then the beef Wellington recipe. And she says the following changes were made in her version. There was no mustard. There was no prosciutto because Don didn't eat pork. There was a call for a crepe layer as well, but Erin says that looked a little bit complicated, so I bought phyllo to use instead of the crepe. Erin says she began preparing the Saturday lunch on the Friday by salting the meat steaks to try and get the juices out of them, shopping and reading the recipe. I think Googling tips on how not to stuff it up. That was probably the bulk of it, she says. On the Saturday morning, Erin says she got to work early on the mushroom duxelles, which involved frying up garlic and chopped shallots. She emptied some mushrooms from Woolworths into her Thermomix and chopped them up a bit. Do you know what? She should have just made a curry. It's much easier. When I have guests round for dinner, which I haven't for a long time because the dogs preclude that. There's too many dogs in my house to be inviting people for dinner. But I always would make either a bolognese or a curry, something easy. You know, like the thought of, I mean, she doesn't work, so I suppose she's got time. It just seems a lot of faff to me. You could have just made a bolognese or a curry or something. Anyway, she can't remember the exact quantity of mushrooms, she says, but it was a lot. She says she cooked it for a very long time to try and remove the water so the pastry wouldn't be soggy. She says that process took roughly 45 minutes, and it was then that she made an addition to the Woolworths mushroom duxelles. I presume I'm pronouncing that right. I've never heard. What's a duxelle? I've no idea. As I was cooking it down, I tasted it a few times, and it seemed a little bland to me. So, this is what she says. I decided to put in the dried mushrooms that I'd brought from the grocer, you know, the Asian grocer, that I still had in the pantry. So I put them in a little strainer with a handle, and I just roughly poured water all over them to get the crispness out of them. I chopped them up and I sprinkled them over the duxelles and pushed them in with an egg flip. Erin does not say if she tasted the dish again after adding the dried mushrooms. She says at the time she believed the dried mushrooms were the ones she'd bought from Melbourne. Oh, and now listen to this. Now I think there's a possibility that there were foraged ones in there as well, she says, closing her eyes and blinking as her voice cracks. So, another lie or another contradiction. So she's been saying all this time that these dried mushrooms were the ones she'd bought in the Asian grocers in Melbourne. Now she's saying there's a possibility there were foraged mushrooms in there. Oh my God. Oh my God. This woman never stops lying, does she? Thank you, Yvonne, for telling us what duxelles is. Sounds nice. Oh my God. So after saying all this time that she definitely hadn't foraged for mushrooms, definitely not foraged for mushrooms. These mushrooms, dried mushrooms, came from the Asian supermarket. Now we're getting the truth, aren't we? We're getting the truth now because she's saying, oh, maybe they were foraged. Maybe they were foraged. Gosh. You know, and her voice cracks. Her voice is cracking. Closing her eyes and blinking as her voice cracks. Oh God, I would love to have seen her, you know, to be able to judge properly, you know, what my instincts were telling me about her, because, you know, sometimes to try and decide if somebody's like, anyway, the jury are there and they can see it all. I wonder what the jury are going to make of that. I mean, at the end of the day, the jury is made up of ordinary people. You know, what are they going to make of it? What are they going to make of it? I think, you know, it's never a good thing when people lie and then change their story, is it? So let's just read that one more time. Now I think there was a possibility there were foraged ones in there as well. Yeah, whatever, Erin. So Mr. Mandy then asked Erin how she felt about Simon's rejection of her invitation to the lunch on July the 29th. Because, of course, Simon, he was invited, but luckily for him, he decided not to go. She confirmed she was a little bit hurt, and then Mr. Mandy reads a text she sent back to him where she outlined her disappointment and spoke about how much effort had gone into preparation for the lunch. Why did you send Simon that message? Mr. Mandy asked. God, it really, honestly, this defence, it seems more like prosecution to me. I was hurt he didn't want to come, but I was also really anxious and stressed about this upcoming procedure that I was going to have. And I just wanted to know that it would be sorted and I wouldn't have to worry about whether I would have help with the kids or not. So I just wanted him to come so I could talk to him about that. Now, the procedure she's talking about, because we found out that actually Erin was going to have, or planning to have, a gastric bypass. And what she will tell us here in this testimony is that the reason she lied about having cancer was because she was too embarrassed to tell him that actually she was going to have a gastric bypass. So that's what you do, isn't it? Isn't that what you do? You don't want to. Now, I understand why, she might have been embarrassed to say she was going to have a gastric bypass. But when you're making up something else, so, say you had decided you were going to have a gastric bypass and you didn't want to tell your family that because you were embarrassed, fair enough. So would you say you had cancer instead? Wouldn't you say, oh, I've got, I don't know, there's a million gallstones, or I've got appendicitis, or, I've got anything. There's a million other things you could say you were going into hospital for apart from cancer, isn't it? Aren't there? If you were too embarrassed, say you were going in for a little bit of a facelift, or you were going in for to me, don't bother doing it if you're too embarrassed to tell people about it. You don't have to shout it to the rooftops. But to me, if I was going into hospital for that, like an aesthetic procedure, like a facelift, or, eye thing, or a gastric bypass, which would never happen, but just if I was, I might be embarrassed about telling people. But if somebody asked me directly what I was having, why are you going into hospital? I wouldn't say I had cancer. That's why I was going in. I'd say, I would tell the truth and just say. But because if you're not embarrassed about doing something, don't do it. If you're embarrassed about doing something, you shouldn't be doing it, at the end of the day. But you certainly would not say you had cancer, would you? It's foul that to say you had cancer. Dear me. What a horrible thing to say. So, let's see. That's what... So when she was asked about the exaggerations in the message, because she's all about exaggeration, Erin, isn't she? It's all about attention. We saw that. She has a headache. She's got a brain tumor. She gets a pain in her leg. She's got thrombosis. She's just all about exaggeration with Erin. And she says the exaggerations were made because she really wanted him to attend the lunch. Oh, yeah, I bet she did. She wanted them all there, didn't she? Yeah. Oh, my God. It is literally like Macbeth, this story, isn't it? She is like Lady Macbeth. She wanted them all to come. Anyway, she said, I shouldn't have done any of that, but that's what I was thinking at the time, she says. She said she wanted Simon to feel a little bit bad about cancelling at the last minute, after he would have known that I would have done a lot of preparation. Oh, my God. Yeah, she was fuming, wasn't she? Erin expects people to dance to her tune, doesn't she? So she admits she'd not really done the many hours of preparation she had told Simon had gone into the lunch. No, it wasn't true, she says. She wanted him to be there. She didn't want Simon as her husband in the full-blown way, but she wanted him at her beck and call, didn't she? She was annoyed that he wasn't coming because of the many hours of preparation. But she said that then she admitted it wasn't true, in fact. She was just trying to blackmail him into it. So then we go back to the meal preparations as Erin outlines how she fried the steaks on both sides and then let them rest. Then she assembled the beef Wellingtons. I used the egg flip again to lift a bit of the duck cells out of the oven and try and put it on each steak. And then I wrapped each one in phyllo and then wrapped each one in puff pastry, she says. And she says she made 6 of the individual beef Wellingtons. At the appropriate time, I put them in the oven. I wanted them to be out and resting by 12:30 when the guests arrived, she said. Now, I'm really surprised that she didn't take a photo of these beef Wellingtons, because Erin strikes me, I mean, she takes photos just of mushrooms lying in dehydrators. So why did she not take a photo of these lovely meals that these lovely meals that she prepared? Why did she not take photos, or did she and she cleared them off her phone? At the appropriate time, I put them in the oven. I wanted them to be out and resting by 12:30 when the guests arrived. So she says the guests were punctual in arriving, and she was getting really nice feedback about the house and the garden. Then we came back in and I got ready to serve, and that's when Heather and Gail had a look inside the pantry, she says. Miss Patterson said her children were present and were at the movies, and she says in an earlier conversation she'd explained to her daughter that the lunch was happening and asked her if she wanted to join the lunch or see a movie with her brother. And she says the movie appealed more to her daughter, which of course it would. She'd rather go and see a movie, wouldn't she, than be with elderly relatives, I would imagine. So she later discussed it with her son. Erin says this conversation was had while her son was playing computer games with a friend, and she explained the movie plan to him. Now we're on the plates. Now, you know I'm obsessed with the plates. Hi, Annie. Hi, Annie. Where are these plates? I'm totally obsessed with the plates. Completely obsessed with where are the plates. So we're coming on to the plates now. Erin says after arriving, Don and Ian were standing by the bookshelf, and while she was mashing potato, Gail and Heather went to look at her pantry. Erin said she had mixed emotions about this, as she was proud of the pantry, but it was a little bit messy. She says Gail and Heather said the pantry looked great and they would love to have a similarly big pantry. Erin says she had the beef Wellingtons resting to the side and had mashed the potato in a pot before serving it up on plates and then adding the beans at the end. And she says, I just used the dinner plates I had to serve. I think there's a couple of black, a couple of white, one that's red on top and black underneath. And then I've got one that my daughter made at kindergarten. So no grey plates that Ian insisted they were on. And he said Erin served hers on like a pink or orangey plate. No, she didn't know. She's contradicting this. She says she didn't own any other dinner plates and didn't own any grey plates. And this conflicts with testimony from lunch guest Ian Wilkinson, who claimed that the lunch was served on 4 grey plates and 1 tan orange plate. And again, who are you going to believe? So if you're on that jury and it's like, oh, who do I believe? Do I believe the woman that's lied over and over again? Or do I believe the survivor, the poor guy who nearly died, who had to have a liver transplant, who was insistent that they were served on 4 grey plates and Erin served it? Who would you believe, I wonder? This is what I don't understand. How does the defence think this is going to help their client? Because to me, it just seems clear she's lying. It's like, well, either she's lying or Ian Wilkinson is lying. They're not both telling the truth. He's adamant it was grey plates and the orange plate. She says no. So one of them is lying. And now the jury have got to decide who's lying, who they're going to believe. Who would you believe? I know who I believe. Just crazy, isn't it? Anyway, she says she put the 6 Wellington straight into the fridge. And as Erin describes the plating up process, she gestures with her hands as if conveying items from one place to another. And you know who I remember who did that? You know, oh yeah, took I remember with the Soham murders, Ian Huntley's girlfriend, oh God, Maxine Carr, where she was describing to the police. I watched her interview with the police, and she was describing the roast dinner that she made. And she was going, oh yeah, and I chopped the potatoes. She was doing exactly those signals, you know, like doing the hand gestures to go with how she'd been making the roast dinner, giving too much information. And of course, we know what happened in the Soham murders. You know, those poor 2 girls were dead, murdered by her boyfriend. And many people think she knew a lot more about it. So, yeah, gesturing with her hands, yeah. It's too much. It's like this sort of too much overemphasis, isn't it? Yeah, just remind me of Maxine Carr. Yeah, we know what sort of a girl she was. So she says as she was doing this, Gail asked if she was coming to a birthday event the next week. And Erin told her she wasn't aware of it, but she would love to come. The Pattersons had a gathering of everybody, roughly every quarter, all of the birthdays that happened around there, she says. Erin recalls she was told about in-laws having had a baby, which was really good news to hear. And later that day, Erin says she messaged her in-law to congratulate her on the baby and said she looked forward to meeting the baby the next week at the Patterson family event. Erin says she plated up 5 dishes. The 6 beef Wellington she had prepared was put straight in the fridge on the oven tray it was cooked on. But she didn't do it on the grey plates and the orange plate. No, Ian's lying. So back to plating up the lunch, and Erin says she was preparing a ready-made gravy sachet to avoid any gravy problem. I said, grab a plate, guys. I'm just going to finish off the gravy, she says. She said she put the gravy in a serving pitcher, grabbed the final plate off the bench, and then went and sat at the table. She said she didn't see the other plates get to the table, but assumes that everybody grabbed a plate. But she accepts that Gail and Heather may have taken them over. And Erin says, right, let's have the Pinocchios. Erin says she doesn't remember which plate she had. Do any of you believe that? Do you? Let's see. I'm going to put I've got to get the Pinocchio on. Definite Pinocchios. So, yep, she doesn't remember her plate. She doesn't remember. If you believe that, you believe anything. So if you believe that, then yeah, I've got a bridge I'd like to sell you. Or some tartan paint. God's sake. Dear me, she doesn't remember which plate she had, but Ian remembered it. You know, but is she saying he's a liar? Okay, then there's a little break. Then cross-examination. It's not cross-examination, is it? It's not cross-examination. Isn't cross-examination, won't that be when the prosecution? Anyway, never mind. Mr. Mandy asks Erin further details about her communication with the kids around the lunch. She recalls dropping the children off to see the movie before heading home to host the lunch. Mr. Mandy then takes Erin to a photo of her living space, which shows the dining table between a living area and the island bench top. Erin has her glasses on again to look at the exhibit on a screen before her, and Mr. Mandy asks if the guests had wanted to help plate up the lunch. So she says at least one or both of them said, "Do you need help?" And I was like at the threshold of being about to serve. So she didn't need help, she says, and she replied with words to the effect of, "It's fine." Erin says the last thing she did before going to the table was putting the gravy from the saucepan into the gravy boat. She says the gravy would have probably only taken a couple of minutes to heat up on the stove. And to do that, she would have had to work at the stove that sits parallel to the bench, the court hears. The court is then shown a photo of the dining table with letters on the chairs where everyone was sitting. Erin says it looks about right, although she recalled that Don and Gail were swapped. She says there was no assigned seating or plates for the lunch. So Mr. Mandy starts to question the portions that each lunch guest ate. Ian and Heather ate all of theirs. Don ate all of his, and Gail ate quite a lot of hers, but not all of it, Erin says. I ate a quarter, a third, somewhere around there of mine. Why? Why did she only eat a quarter? Because she likes eating. We'll find that out in a minute. She had 3 portions of cake. So, I'm just wondering why she only ate a quarter of hers. Is it just to show she'd eaten something? I don't know. Mr. Mandy asks about evidence the court heard that Erin had in fact eaten half her meal. It was about that. I wasn't measuring. I couldn't be precise. It was some of it. And Mr. Mandy asks why she ate less than the rest of the guests. I was talking a lot. Yeah, she was too busy talking about her cancer that she didn't have. I was eating slowly. That's about all I can say, Erin says. None of it feels right, does it? It just all feels weird, I think, just all feels really odd, in my opinion, but nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense here, I think. So what was discussed at the deadly lunch? Erin says conversation during the lunch would have covered a bit of family news, politics, current affairs. At one point, I remember Don talking about his brother that was battling throat cancer. I think it was, she says. And, so she's saying she's got cancer. And one of these poor guys at this lunch, his brother has got cancer. Erin says the cancer topic lingered in the conversation, and at the end of the meal she mentioned she'd had an issue a year or 2 earlier where she thought she'd had ovarian cancer. So remember, we heard like from her medical records and everything, she thought she'd had everything, lupus, multiple cirrhosis, she thought she had a brain tumor. She's a hypochondriac. Then she said, I'm not proud of this, but I led them to believe I might be needing some treatment in regards to that in the next few weeks or months, she says. I do remember I referred to upcoming treatment because primarily in my mind, I was thinking I might need help getting the kids to and from the bus and other activities. I might need to explain why I'm going up to the hospital for a day or 2. This is because she was planning on having the gastric bypass. So that was really the focus of what I was talking about. And Erin agrees she misled her lunch guests, who all showed a lot of compassion for the health issues she had told them about. Then we saw Simon's car driving into the driveway, coming back with the kids. And so Ian said, why don't we pray for Erin? And so that's what we did, she says. I mean, that is, just awful. So this poor guy, Don, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the victims more closely. So this is Don over here in the left. So we're finding out here his brother actually was battling cancer. Really, really not lying, he was. And then Ian, who's the survivor, who's a pastor, said, let's pray for Erin. God, what a horrible woman she is. She really is a horrible woman. Whether she's tried to murder these people or not, she's just a horrible woman. What she's done for attention. Awful woman. Just awful. Even if it turns out she didn't mean to kill them, or she did, it was all a terrible accident, she's still a horrible woman for what she's put them, the lies that she told just for attention. So Mr. Mandy asked her why she lied. I was really embarrassed. I was ashamed of the fact I didn't have control over my body or what I ate. I was ashamed of that. I didn't want to tell anybody, but I shouldn't have lied to them, she says, sniffing. Yeah, I bet there weren't any tears rolling down her face. That's what she does. She sniffs. I understand she might have felt embarrassed about telling them she was going to have a gastric bypass. But let's face it, there's a million things she could have said that she had wrong with her. Cancer, is just foul. So Erin says when her children arrived, her son fetched his flying book. So don't forget that next day, the son was supposed to be going for a flying lesson. Because she took him for the flying lesson, didn't she? We heard that earlier on in the trial. So even though she, supposedly had terrible diarrhea, she went off on this long journey to take her son for a flying lesson. And she stopped at the toilets, the service station, for 9 seconds. She was getting rid of some evidence there, 100%. Disposing of evidence. She went into the toilets 9 seconds, but she was supposed to have really bad diarrhea at the time. So he'd fetched his flying book and he was sharing it with his grandfather Don, and Ian had a meeting at church, so the lunch gathering dissolved. She said her son and his friend then went into a room to play computer games, but probably helped to clean up. Miss Patterson said there were some scraps on guest plates and the rest of her beef Wellington, along with some potatoes she had not eaten. There were also leftovers from the potatoes, beans and gravy, and a lot of Heather's fruit platter. She encouraged me to keep it for us to eat, so that was left over, and quite a lot of the cake that Gail had brought was left over as well. And the 6 beef Wellington, which Erin says was not eaten, also remained. Now this is where we come to the leftover cake. So Erin has not eaten all her beef Wellington. She only ate half of it, she said. Well, actually, she said she ate less than half of it. But the other guests, so don't forget, we have got testimony from all the guests, because although 3 of them are now deceased, it took them a couple of days to die. So before they died, Ian wasn't the only one that testified that these beef Wellingtons were on grey plates. Erin's was on a different plate. The others said that as well, but of course they're not here to actually give their testimony. So Erin says that while her son played PC games with his friend, she had several pieces of cake, progressively eating all the cake that Gail Patterson had left behind, which she says was 2/3. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. I could quite easily eat a whole cake. Honestly, I'm not a lover of cake, funnily enough, but I'm a bit of a person, whereas if it's there, maybe Erin's the same, it's there looking at me. Do you know what I mean? So you go and you have one piece and then you think, oh, I might as well have another piece. Oh, I might as well finish it off now. I mean, it's quite easy to eat a whole cake, isn't it, at the end of the day? But I don't know if I could after a meal. Maybe later on, a good few hours later. I haven't got a sweet tooth. I'm not really a dessert person. Some people like to have a dessert, don't they? I'm not bothered about a dessert. I'd rather have a starter. I'm a savoury girl. I'm not a sweet girl. Like chocolate and all that, it sort of leaves me cold, really. I'm not saying I don't like it, but I wouldn't bother about it. I'd rather have a nice starter than have a dessert. But as I say, if there was a cake in my house, best thing for me is to just not buy cakes. If there was a cake there, maybe I could eat it all at once. I don't know. I don't think I could, actually. Not a cake. I could eat a whole packet of Pringles easily. Anything savoury like that, you have to really take that away from me. But anyway, so she had several pieces of cake and she progressively ate all the cake Gail had left behind. 2/3 of the original cake. You'd think the kids would want that. God, I wouldn't get a look in if there was a cake in this house. Number one son would be straight there. After eating the cake, Erin says, I felt sick. I felt overfull. So I went to the toilets and brought it back up again. Ugh. Now, don't forget, previously Erin had said that she'd had a problem with bulimia. I mean, no offence, but she doesn't look like she's got a problem with bulimia, because people with bulimia, like Princess Diana, or, they're normally slim, aren't they? Because the thing is, they eat and then they bring it back up again because they're paranoid about putting on weight. Gail, to me, looks like she's... sorry, not Gail. Erin looks like she's got a problem with overeating. You can see that. And a lot of people do, and it is an addiction. Food can be just as much as an addiction as drugs or drink. Comfort eating, but we shouldn't forget that. It may mean that Erin has got, problems like, a lot of abused children overeat for comfort. And also, a lot of abused children, I know this 100% for a fact, they overeat because they want to make themselves overweight, because then their abuser might not be interested in them. That's another thing. And I don't think that's ever really spoken about or, recognised. If you don't want someone abusing you, try and make yourself as unattractive as possible. Anyway, after eating the cake, Erin says, I felt sick, I felt overfull, so I went to the toilets and brought it back up again. And yesterday, the court had heard Erin say she had struggled with binge eating and bulimia throughout her life. Right, sorry, we are going to get some details of bowel movements and things, so sorry about that. Erin says she later had some loose stools, which started about 5:30 p.m. Where does it go from that? Yeah. So during the trial, we've heard about a trip Erin Patterson took to a Subway with her son following the lunch. Erin says when she went to Subway, she parked and waited in the car while her son fetched food from inside. Mr. Mandy then takes Erin to the footage of a car at the Subway that night, previously led to by the prosecution, but she says while it's the same colour, it's not the same car. So they're trying to say that this was not Erin who went to the Subway that night. It was not her son. Maybe, she says, it looks a little bit different to my car. I can't say 100% it's not. Well, yes, you can, Erin, because you know whether you went to Subway or not. I don't understand that, do you? I can't say 100% it's not. Well, did you go to Subway or didn't you? And when a figure in a green and gold top is seen walking across the car park, Mr. Mandy asks if that is Erin's son, and she says it is not. I can't wait for the cross-examination on that. What the prosecution's going to say about that. You know, how could you say that you didn't, you can't say for certain if that's your car outside the subway. You know whether you went to Subway or not. You know, you say, oh, well, it can't be my car because I never went to Subway. But, you know, well, yeah, it probably was my car because I did go to Subway. I mean, did she go or not? For God's sake. Very strange. Yeah, what's the prosecution going to do with that? Anyway, she said she began feeling ill around midnight, really nauseous with diarrhea beginning about 11 p.m. or midnight. I would get this quite strong abdominal cramping and then an urgent need to go. And she says it felt pretty frequent to me, every 20 minutes at some times, maybe further apart at other times. But she still the next morning decided to drive her son to that flying lesson, which was an hour and a half away, and she only did a 9-second stop at the toilets. You know, she just catches herself out with her own lies. Anyway, enough that it was hard to get back to sleep, she says. She said she took a drug to treat the diarrhea symptoms at some point, and she was able to get some rest. She says she got out of bed around 10 a.m. 10 a.m. and went downstairs where her son was in the TV room on the couch. I think, God, she's just got a life. She can just do what she wants, can't she? I think I made some kind of herbal tea, like lemon and ginger tea, something like that, she says. So she said she was still nauseous and had diarrhea, but it wasn't as bad as it had been overnight. Meanwhile, Don, Gail, Heather and Ian are in absolute agony. Their symptoms started later that night, and they're by now at hospital on the verge of going into comas, or being put into comas to try and help them. Erin says her son told her he had a sore tummy and asked if they could give church a miss, and she wondered if he had a bug like her. Miss Patterson. Now, that's the first time we've heard that. Her son told her he had a sore tummy. Now, bear in mind, when Erin was told she should take her children to the hospital, initially she was reluctant to take them. She didn't want to take them to the hospital. Now it turns out her son had said he'd had a sore tummy. And when Erin was told that the rest of them were probably poisoned by death cap mushrooms, God, she should have been at that hospital in shock with her children. Anyway, she said she recalls Simon calling at some point in the morning and asking if they were at church, and she explained to him why they'd given it a miss. And he told me that Don and Gail had diarrhea too, she says. We spoke twice that day, and he did tell me at one point they were getting fluids at Korumburra Hospital. Erin says over the day the diarrhea was becoming less frequent and was probably close to hourly into the afternoon. She says she wasn't timing it and said it was just a guess. Miss Patterson says she decided to take her son to a flying lesson, which was pushed back from its original schedule. She says that before setting off for the lesson in Tayab, this is an hour and a half at least journey she's talking about. Imagine when you've got an upset tummy. You know, we've all had upset tummies. I bet there's nobody who's watching this who has never in their whole life had an upset tummy. You don't move from the toilet, do you? Because you you can't imagine anything worse than being out somewhere and you've got to try and find a loo, and you know it's horrible. You just want to be at home, don't you? You know, and be able to go to the loo when you want to your own loo, you know, where it's not embarrassing. So she decided to take her son regardless to this flying lesson, And before she set off, she had water and maybe another ginger tea, as well as more drugs to prevent diarrhea. And my son had said to me, you know, if I'm not feeling well, it's fine. We don't have to go. So even her son said to her, if you don't feel well, we don't have to go. And she said, oh, no, let's go and see how we go. Yeah, because she wanted to get rid of some evidence. I think that's why. He's a compassionate boy. He didn't want me to go if I wasn't feeling well. Erin says, as the time to leave came neared, she thought there was a good chance things would be okay with her diarrhea and the trip to tie-up. So bear in mind the rest of her relatives, they are in intensive care in hospital. And she thinks she'll be okay to do an hour and a half's trip in the car. Just unbelievable, isn't it? Completely unbelievable. Right. Sorry, where am I? Right. Sorry, you're going to get some gory details here. She says that about 30 minutes in, she felt she needed to use the toilet, so they pulled over at a stretch where there was some bushland. I went off into the bush and went to the toilet. I had diarrhea. I cleaned myself up a bit with tissues and I put them in a dog poop bag, and we hit the road again. So this is the reason she'll be given, that she didn't stop at, you know, service stations where there'd be CCTV. She went into the bush and had a poo. Now, the thing is, surely her son can testify to that, can he? Anyway, during a stop, so this is what she said. This is what she said she put in the bin. So this is the reason for a 9-second stop. During a stop at the BP Caldermead, Miss Patterson said she put the dog poo bag containing tissues she'd used while toileting in the bin. And she says she bought food for her children, but she tells the court she brought nothing for herself. So now, you know, I'm not being funny, but if you did a poo in the bush, are you really going to be bothered about picking it up? You know, come on. In the bush, you know, I mean, yeah, you're not going to do a poo on the pavement and leave it there. Are you really going to be bothered about picking it up, putting it in a poo bag and disposing of it? I mean, what did she do? Put it in a handbag? Because she wasn't seen carrying a poo bag to go into that service station. As far as I know, I mean, we'll find out when she gets cross-examined. But yeah, if you had got caught sure, and I'm not saying that didn't happen, you could get caught sure easily, and that's what you'd have to do, isn't it? Go into the bush behind a tree and do whatever you had to do. But would you really bother about clearing it up? Would you? Anyway, let's see what people are saying about that. I need to have a look. Exactly. No reason to pick it up whatsoever. You know, if you need to go to the loo while you're out and about in the woods or whatever, you're not going to pick it up, are you? You know, just like, I mean, if you're in the bush, would you even pick up your dog's poo? You know, it's not like it's, you know, out in the bush. Oh dear. Anyway. So when it came for time for dinner, Miss Patterson said she took the leftover beef Wellington out of the fridge and removed the mushroom and pastry before cutting up the meat and microwaving it for her children. And Erin says she tentatively attempted some other food, but it didn't go down well, so she stopped. You just wouldn't bother, would you? Well, dry toast, if you've got a bad tummy, really all you can normally get down that doesn't upset you is dry toast, or, you know, just put something in your tummy. So for the rest of the evening, she says, she had a Subway, didn't she? That's the whole thing of that Subway, that boy. Surely he could testify to that. Did he go into the Subway or not? And did he buy a Subway for him and her? I don't think there's anything wrong with Erin's tummy. So she said she remained a little bit off in the tummy before going to bed about 10 or 11. And overnight, she says, I felt the diarrhea coming back a bit more strongly than it had been. And that happened for a few hours. My best guess is around 1 or 2 a.m. or somewhere around there. So then about 6 a.m. on the Monday after the lunch, Erin says she got up and started to get her children ready for school. She says the bus to school picked them up about 7:20, and then she called her estranged husband, Simon. And she says at this point, she believes she might need some fluids in hospital to assist with the diarrhea she was experiencing. Every time I drank water, it went straight through me, couldn't seem to retain it. So I thought I should go in for a little bit, she says. She says she called Simon because she didn't want to go by herself to hospital. She says Simon said he was tired and still in bed and she should drive herself, which she then did. I don't think they realised then how serious it all was. So she says when she got to the hospital, she used the toilet. I hope none of you are having your breakfast or your lunch or whatever. She used the toilet before waiting in the emergency department. She says she then recalls a doctor apologising for the wait before telling her there were 2 critically ill people in there. And she says she told him, that's fine. I've just got gastro. It's not urgent. After she gave him her name, she says he said, we've been expecting you, and asked her to come through. I followed him in, and I remember feeling a little bit unsettled because when I said my name, his reaction communicated he knew who I was, which threw me quite a bit, she says. And she says the doctor asked her if she was the cook and where the ingredients in the beef Wellington lunch had come from. And when he told her about his concern of death cap mushrooms in the meal, Erin said she was shocked but confused as well. Do you know, I think Erin never thought in a million years they would find out so quickly. I bet when he said that to her, you know, she would have just like, a stomach would have dropped, if you pardon the expression. You know, she'd be like, oh my God, they know. So she said, I was just expecting to come in for saline for gastro, she says. And she says she didn't see how death cap mushrooms could be in the meal. And she was puzzled because she only really knew about her gastro. Erin says she was told she'd need specific medicine and to be sent to Melbourne in an ambulance. I felt really anxious and stressed and confused. I felt really overwhelmed, she says. And Erin said she had a bag with her at Leongatha Hospital with a water bottle and some kind of warm jumper or jacket. She says she tried to explain to the nurse why she couldn't go to Melbourne straight away and she was just planning to go for a few hours and that she had kids at school. I couldn't move my brain out of that, being stuck in what I thought the day was going to look like. It was kind of like trying to turn a really, really big ship. Amongst the things on her mind were organising her daughter's ballet event that night and securing the dog and the lambs. Right. Please don't, she doesn't kill these lambs, does she? Is she a farmer in that sense? Please tell me she doesn't kill these lambs. Anyway, never mind. Now, I'm sorry, but if somebody had told me that I might have eaten death camp mushrooms, the things on my mind would be, am I going to die? Have my children had any of these? Are they going to die? I wouldn't be worrying about the ballet event. You worry about securing the dog and the lambs, which I hope she doesn't, the lambs are not for eating. Would it? Oh my God. Anyway, it wouldn't surprise me. But so you'd get somebody, wouldn't you? You'd have to get someone to go and sort the dogs and the lambs out. even get someone to take your daughter to ballet. But at the end of the day, first thing you'd want to happen with your kids in this scenario is get them to hospital and make sure they're okay. Erin says the discussion with hospital staff then moved into how far away she lived and how quickly she could be back at the hospital after attending to those matters. Sorry, this is just making me laugh. So at this point, the judge suggests a break and the court adjourns for lunch. Oh, that's lovely. So they've just been talking about Erin's bowel movements and off they go for lunch. So you wouldn't want the stew, would you? Just like, oh dear me, I don't know. So yeah, they've been talking about watery stools, and then the judge says, "Oh right, it's time for lunch." Oh my God, oh dear me, dear me. So I hope the judge enjoyed his lunch. Anyway, then they look back at yesterday, look back at today. No, we're not doing that. We won't go through the Tuesday. If you want to look at the Tuesday's events or any of the events, have a look at there's the playlist with every day on it. So did we come back? So I hope they've all had a good lunch. Yes. Oh God, I don't know what you could eat after hearing all that. You wouldn't want mushrooms. You wouldn't want the stew or anything like liquidy. A sandwich, I suppose, about the only thing you could get down you. So we returned from the break, picking up at the Monday after the Saturday lunch, when Erin Patterson left Leongatha Hospital to attend to some home tasks. She'd been told by doctors she needed to go to Melbourne for tests, but wanted to look after her pets first. She wanted to move things around, didn't she? Anyway, upon returning to the hospital, so after 5 minutes, she discharged herself from the hospital, and the hospital was so worried about her. This came up in previous testimony, didn't it? They were so worried about her. It was the hospital that rang the police and said, look, this person may die, so anyway. So she returned to the hospital. She says she had a brief chat with the doctor. Then she was taken into the urgent care area and she was set up in a bed with a curtain. So Erin says she was speaking with the doctor when the children came up and he asked her if they'd eaten the meal. And she told him she'd served her children the leftovers, but she had removed the pastry and mushrooms and fed them the meat and the potato beans. Mr. Mandy asks her about a conversation with police, but Erin can't remember much except she spoke to them at one point. I told police that the leftovers they were after, I had put them in the bin, but I couldn't remember if it was only into the kitchen bin or they'd made it all the way out to the outside red bin, she said. Erin says she gave them the gate code to get into the property and told them she could give them a key to get in or they could look for open windows. So in that meantime, when she discharged herself, she definitely went home and sort of manipulated things a bit, I think. And that's when she said that she wasn't sure about the origins of the mushrooms, but that the origins were Woolworths and the Asian grocer. And she tells the court, that's what I thought at the time. Just don't forget, she's saying now that she did forage for them. Or she could have foraged for them. She's lying again. Good God. So she remembers wanting to go and get her children from school, which she says is kind of absurd on reflection. But at the time, I was their mother and they're my children. Well, before that, she's been trying to get anybody else to pick them up, saying to Simon, he's got to pick them up. Now, suddenly, only she can pick them up. And I wanted to be responsible for them, she says. At some stage over that morning, Erin says she had a chat with one of the doctors and asked what's going on. Why do people think that it's deaf cat mushrooms? What is the situation of everybody? And the doctor said she couldn't tell me that because of privacy concerns, apart from the fact that none of them were her patients anyway. Erin says, can't believe anything this girl says. So the questioning turns to Miss Patterson's attitude towards her children being checked out after the lunch. Medical staff had previously told the court she expressed reluctance to have her children admitted to hospital. Erin says the doctor explained to her that while she'd scraped the mushrooms off, it was possible the toxins had seeped in and it was better to be safe than sorry. And she says she could understand the logic in that. And she said it wasn't that I didn't want them to be treated, more the drastic step of putting them in hospital. I wanted to understand that that was really necessary. Oh, come on. That's to avoid them going into hospital. You know, it's to the hospital. Why the hospital shouldn't need to tell a mother that their children need to be checked out. You know, that's immediate. You know, this is a woman that all the time is obsessing about health normally. And then she's told that her children might have ingested death cap mushrooms and she's reluctant to take them to hospital. Anyway, she says that when she was told they should come to hospital, it made sense to me. Whatever. Erin was then taken by ambulance to from Leongatha to Monash Hospital, and she was given anti-nausea medication along the way. Now remember, they said to her, this is an hour and a half journey, or at least an hour journey. We heard this testimony from the hospital, and they said to her, if you need to go to the toilet, you know, because she supposedly got this diarrhea, of course, if you need to go to the toilet, just tell us. And she didn't need to go. So she says she was also given fentanyl, which made her feel a little bit loopy. Oh my God. Bloody hell, she's already a little bit loopy. So allegedly, God knows what the fentanyl did to her, but it took the pain away. So Miss Patterson recalls waiting to be given a bed in Monash Hospital and the doorway from where she was to triage being open and seeing Simon and the children. Then I was put in a cubicle somewhere waiting to be assessed. It's a little bit of a blur, she said. Hope you're all okay there. What are you all thinking about? I know you're making comments in the chat there and that. If you're watching on catch up or, you know, please leave your comments. And you know what, maybe you think I'm being unfair to Erin. Maybe I am, I don't know, but it's just how I feel. But everybody has their views. So it's all a bit of a blur up to now. Then she said her condition improved in hospital. I remember still having toilet trips at Leongatha, she says, and she says the drugs helped with nausea, but it came and went a bit. And when she woke up the next day, she was feeling quite a lot better. And at this point, the children were in the paediatric wing of the hospital. Now, bearing in mind, we heard this again in testimony earlier on in this trial. Yeah, she was feeling quite a lot better. Meanwhile, the other 4 people that were at that lunch, despite having the best treatment, I'm sure that hospital tried their very best to save these people. And Don actually was given a liver transplant, but still died. The 2 ladies were too ill to have a liver transplant. You know, the doctors went through, you know, the symptoms, what happened to their bodies. Their whole organs shut down, you know, all of them, except Erin. Erin had a little bit of diarrhea, and that's it. By the next day, she was feeling quite a lot better. But we're supposed to believe she ate the same thing as they did. Come on. So we heard all this testimony from Sally Ann Atkinson. She began asking Erin about the food poisoning outbreak and the origins of the ingredients. And Erin said she told her the same thing that she told others, that the majority of the ingredients were bought at Leongatha Woolworths, with the dried mushrooms also used. And she says she told Miss Atkinson the truth. She says, oh my God, it can't all be the truth. When you change your story, they can't both be the truth. Anyway, the court is then shown some of the text messages between Miss Atkinson and Miss Patterson. In a lengthy message, Miss Atkinson asks Erin to describe the packaging of the dried mushrooms and anything she can remember about the store where she might have bought them. And at the same time as these messages were being sent, Miss Patterson says she was either with her children or in an appointment related to them. And Erin says she was feeling very anxious. It was overwhelming. Yeah, it was quite overwhelming for those 3 people that were dying. 4 people that were dying there in the hospital, Erin. You know, she's not really mentioning them at all, is she? And now this is another case contradiction of who do you believe? Erin saying one thing and her estranged husband saying another thing. And like earlier when we had Ian saying about the plates and Erin saying, no, they weren't grey plates. Who do you believe? Now you've got to decide who you believe in this. Erin says that later in a conversation with her husband and their children, there was discussion about the growing suspicion that the lunch Erin had prepared was the cause of the illness in the guests. I remember my daughter saying something like, well, we weren't at the lunch, why are we here too? And I explained they had eaten leftovers, but I scraped the mushrooms off yours and my son's food, Erin said. She said the conversation then turned to her food dehyrator. Don't forget that was another lie. She told the police she'd never had a food dehyrator originally. I just remember conversation about, yes, my daughter doesn't like mushrooms, but it's interesting that when I made muffins with dried mushrooms inside, I said, why? Why would you put mushrooms in muffins, chocolate muffins? And she said she put it in as a blind test. That's her. She's actually admitting there it was a blind taste test. I think that was a practice run to see if she could put these mushrooms, dry them and put them in food and they wouldn't be noticed because they were quite pungent. Anyway, she preferred the muffin with the most amount of mushrooms in it. And we thought that was quite interesting, she says. But later, and don't forget, she told her Facebook friend she was putting mushrooms in everything. But later, in a conversation with Simon, Erin says he put forward a shocking allegation. He said to me, is that how you poisoned my parents? Using that dehyrator, Erin says. I said, of course not. Now, Simon Patterson, when he gave his testimony earlier in the trial, he denied saying that accusation. So again, who do we believe? Do we believe Erin, the proven liar? Or do we believe Simon? Who's one of them's lying? Can't both be telling the truth. So then she apparently began reflecting on the lunch. She tells the court the accusation from Simon triggered her to reflect on the lunch. It caused me to do a lot of thinking about a lot of things, she says. I was starting to think, what if they'd gone in the container with the Chinese mushrooms? Maybe that had happened. She tells the court it made her feel scared and worried because child protection was now involved. Erin tells the best thing they could do is take those children away from that woman. Erin tells the court that knowing child protection workers were on their way to her home, she decided to throw out the dehyrator. she said she was worried she would be blamed for making her lunch guests sick, so she went to dispose of the dehyrator at the Coonawarra tip. Mr. Mandy's questioning returns to Erin's interactions with health officials Sally and Atkinson. And Miss Atkinson's questions over the text were focused very squarely on the ingredients in the meal, he notes, and asks how they made Erin feel. Very anxious, very anxious, Erin says. Erin says she didn't tell Miss Atkinson that the supermarket ingredients were probably not responsible for illness because she was scared. So she's changing her story completely. She is changing her story completely again. So now what she's saying is that she, because initially she said about this Chinese supermarket, and now she's saying no, she knew that it was probably from what she'd foraged. How awful. This woman is a serial liar. She's a serial liar, and she's expecting people now to believe that what she's saying now is true. I don't know what the jury are going to be making of this. She says she still thought it was a possibility the Asian grocer sourced mushrooms were responsible for the poisoning, but she knew it wasn't the only possibility. This is the first time she's coming out with this. Mr. Mandy then takes Erin to a conversation she had on the Friday after the lunch with child protection worker Katrina Cripps about her phone number. I told her I was going to change my phone number, Erin says. I was becoming concerned about Simon's behaviour and his allegations, and I was concerned for my security. Oh my God, this woman. So she's concerned about her, she's just poisoned 4 of her ex-husband's relatives, and she's concerned about his behaviour and her security. Oh my God. So I wanted him to not be able to contact me anymore. Oh my God. Earlier in the trial, Miss Cripps confirmed that during this visit, Erin had mentioned she was scared about security and privacy and was considering changing her phone number. Yeah, whatever. Now, these factory resets are interesting. So, we have heard a lot about phone data and that, and it can get a little bit boring, I think. But here's the record of factory resets on phone B. And Erin says she's responsible for the last 3, but her son carried out the first one. So February the 12th, 23, that had been my phone since the start of the year. In February, my son damaged his own phone, and so he needed a new phone. So I bought a new A23 and gave him the one I'd been using, which was this phone. August the 2nd, to get my son's information off it so I could set it up for me. He'd used it till early May when he'd taken it on school camp. He slipped and fell in some mud while they were bushwalking. Or maybe it was some diarrhea, but somebody didn't clear up. Anyway, and the phone had got pretty coated in mud, and the charging port and whatnot were a bit muddy. Erin said she'd tried a few methods to clean it over time, but it stayed there drying out during that time. She says she figured out it was capable of being used on August the 2nd, so I put it on charge, and at some point I factory reset it. Then on August the 6th, Erin said she carried out this factory reset because at some point, after the search of my house and the interview and the detectives had brought me home, I remember thinking, I wonder if I can log into my Google account and see where all my devices are. So I did that, and I could see my phone and my children's devices, and it was really stupid. But I thought, I wonder if they'd been silly enough to leave it connected to the internet. So I hit factory reset to see what happened. like you do. And it did. God, I can't believe she's said she had safety concerns about her husband. This woman, she's bad. She actually makes Lady Macbeth look like bloody Pippi Longstocking, doesn't she? She's Lady Macbeth is got nothing on this woman. During the trial, there have been several phones and devices linked to Erin Patterson which have featured in the evidence. Phone A is a phone which prosecutors allege had its SIM card swapped during a police search of Miss Patterson's home on August the 5th, and it was never recovered. So, because they were foolish, the police, they were sloppy, because they let her have her phone, they let her spend time on her own while they were searching her house, and during that time the SIM card was swapped over, and that phone has never been found. Phone B is a phone Miss Patterson handed to the police on August the 5th, which underwent 4 factory resets in 2023, including one done remotely while it was in a police locker at Spencer Street in Melbourne's CBD. So when the police had taken Erin's phone off her, she factory reset it remotely. As she says that when police visited her home, phone A was on a windowsill near a charging station. And she says the phone she gave police when they asked for her phone was phone B, which she'd been using all the time. So at the end of that day, she said she got home and she was a bit confused by the property seizure record she'd been given by the police, which showed 2 Samsung devices had been taken. But she says she found a Nokia phone left in a basket, and then she saw phone A on a windowsill. I was trying to piece together what was going on, she says. So I took the 783 SIM out of phone A and I put it into the Nokia so that I could use the Nokia. And she says she switched the Nokia on after midnight, and it baffled me why the Nokia was still in my house. God. Whew. Anyway, gosh, I'm knackered with still a little while to go yet, but not much. So after a short break, we return to Mr. Mandy's questioning. Mr. Mandy shows his client multiple pages of message exchanges between Erin and her in-laws. Many of the messages we've already heard, including Don suggesting ways to entertain the children and organising to tutor his grandson in mathematics. As with much of her testimony relating to her children, Erin's voice wavers and she fights back some tears. She tells the court she had a really good relationship with Don and Gail in 2022. So she now appears distressed. She's sniffing frequently as she describes the supportive relationship she enjoyed with her parents-in-law, Don and Gail. Then Mr. Mandy leads the court to several photos taken in Erin's house, Leongatha house, during a police search. She identifies various devices, including 2 Acer laptops. She also identifies a very old Lenovo ThinkPad laptop that was in a tub in the garage amongst the photos. Right, we've come to the end of it finally. Mr. Mandy indicates that the defence doesn't have long to go with their examination of Erin Patterson. He says they will likely finish their questioning of Erin tomorrow morning. And that's where the court is adjourned and today's hearing comes to an end. So, what do you think? Now, there was something that must have been on the BBC one. She made some comment about the police saying that, I didn't think they'd be that stupid. It didn't come up in there, but anyway, I'm not going to go through all the BBC one as well because we've been through quite a lot. But thank you, Admit. Yes, please hit like. Even if you're lurking, I don't know who hits like or not. So you still your anonymity is safe even if you hit like. I just think it's unbelievable, don't you? The whole sort of thing is anyway. So that's where we are. So there's only 2 days left this week. There'll only be one full day. Tomorrow's Thursday. So that'll probably be a full-on day again. Like these have been full days, haven't they, this week? Friday will be a short day. Now, Mr. Mandy, he says he's only got about 15 minutes of questioning left of Erin. Then the prosecution will then he will call, if he's got any other witnesses for the defense. I don't know if there will be any other witnesses for the defense. Oh no, first of all, the prosecution will get the chance to cross-examine Erin. So, and then of course it'll be the closing arguments, then it'll be the jury. I don't think we'll be getting a verdict this week, unless for some reason it moves forward really quickly. I think it's going to be next week, isn't it, before the verdict comes? And, wonder how the jury are feeling, at the moment. What are they, are they believing Erin? I can't see how it's possible to believe Erin. Even if you wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, just because of all the lies she's told, it's... you can't keep changing your story and then expect people to believe you. Just can't, So, but we'll see. It's not our decision to make. It's the jury's decision. And I don't envy them, because, well, I say it's a difficult decision. It wouldn't be actually for me at the moment, but there'll be people maybe who want to give Erin the benefit of the doubt, but I feel like the more she says, the more that Erin says, the more dodgy she looks. I don't feel like I started off thinking, she was a bit sketchy, and now I'm not so sure. I started off thinking she was a bit sketchy and wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, and now I'm thinking, she's definitely sketchy. But we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to go and have some lunch. But, I don't think there'll be mushrooms involved. But possibly, you never know. I do like mushrooms. Listen, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. I'm trying to find, don't know if I can find. Can't find. Anyway, thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Bluebell Kelly, for the Ko-fi. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I appreciate all of you for watching, for joining in the chat, for just lurking at home, for liking. Thank you so much for caring about these people. I'm trying to find my little thank you. Thank you. Gracias. Obrigado. Thank you so much. Yeah, hope you all have a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Don't forget to leave your comments. Please like if you remember. Please subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And don't forget to press your notifications. Your notification bell, if you want updates on this case, because every day until this case is over, I will be updating on it. You need to make sure you press your notification bell. All notifications. Thank you. Okay, I'll see you really soon in the next video. Oh, that's right. I've got something to play at the end. I had something. Right, hang on. So what I haven't played for a while is like, you know, I was sent the song from AA, Admit, and but she also sent me like a sort of Spanishy version of it, and I want to play that as well. I'm going to play that before we finish. Just got to work out how to put it on. Okay, till I see you again. May your God go with you. Bye.
Oh, you Vicky Marie, you're so dread, you're so bold. Your YouTube world is the purest gold. With every